Yadong looked great.
Yeah. We got through so far.
Yadong looked great.
It really does. Yadong does look great.
All right. Welcome back to the OneLife MMA Podcast. I have been dying to have this conversation with you after watching last night's fight. Today we'll be discussing the Cejudo versus Yadong recap and the Kape versus Almabayev preview going in for next week.
Yep. And obviously we're going to be talking about all of the other fights that happened last night.
Yeah.
It was an insane night of fighting. If you're watching this at a later date, we're recording it day after the fights.
Yeah. So last night, I think that going into the main card, there was not a single fight that went the distance. Every single fight before the main card was finished by submission or KO, TKO. And then going into the main card filled with, they had two performance of the nights, and they had an amazing co-main event. Main event, we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
Weird shit happened.
Absolutely wild. But before we get into the main event, let's start with our standout fight of the evening. What did you think the standout fight or fights of the day were?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about some of the bonuses that went off last night. So performance of the night went to Ricky Simone and I believe it's pronounced Gian Silva. Both had devastating knockouts. Very different situations for these fighters. Okay.
Right.
So Simone, on a 3-fight losing streak, really trying to solidify that he belongs in this, division, belongs in the organization. And with a knockout like he had last night, he puts himself back on the map, allows himself to, show that he belongs, ready himself for the next fight. Silva, on the other hand, is on a 12-fight win streak now.
Yeah.
And after, once again, a devastating knockout, calls out Bryce Mitchell and is looking to get himself into the top 15, which I think he deserves. What did you think of the Gian Silva fight?
Yeah, I mean, that was an insane fight. Like that was the fight where there was a knockout, that really big knockout, right?
Yeah. So highly, I think you texted me during the match. You're like, this is a highly technical fight. It was.
Yes.
Yes. It was like a chess game.
Yeah, that was a super technical fight. Like they really, in the start of the fight, they really were feeling each other out, trying to, gauge distances, figure out how the other guy was fighting, doing all of that. And then really towards the later end of the fight, they just started swinging.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah, for someone who's not very familiar with the UFC MMA, they might see that as like a boring start to the fight, but they're in there with two guys that are trying to knock their heads off, right? Yeah. And it was a perfect display of distance management. And once Silva kind of found his rhythm, he laid the hammer down. And very, very interesting. Do you remember the little like slap situation that happened in the middle of the fight?
Yeah,
Silva's a bit of a goof. You know, he seems to be very passionate about the sport and has a lot of fun in there. But yeah, a little bit of a weird exchange there.
Yeah, it was Silva who got slapped, right? And he was like, nice one. And then they're like, okay, this is going on a little long. Get back to the freaking fight. You guys aren't friends in the octagon there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I think that he has earned a shot into the top 15 for his next fight. Bryce Mitchell, a very interesting call out because he's a guy that's been really dominant. He's lost a couple fights in his last 3, I believe. But to big name guys. Okay. Right. So the step up in competition, calling out Bryce Mitchell, huge. I think he earned it last night.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I don't know I don't have that much knowledge on Bryce Mitchell in particular, but this division in general is really competitive. So we'll see how he can fight his way through it.
I agree. Next, we'll talk about the fight of the night. So fight of the night was surprising to me, Alonzo Menfield versus Julius Walker.
That was a great fight.
Yeah, fantastic. I don't know if you knew this or caught this, but Julius Walker, that was his UFC debut.
Really?
And he took the fight on 10 days notice.
Wow.
Against a top 15 ranked opponent Alonzo Manfield.
How did he get that great of an opponent for his first fight? Is it because it was on short notice and he was like, you know what, I'm taking this fight. No matter what, it's getting me into the UFC.
Exactly.
Like whether I win or lose, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just getting me in there. And if I put on a good performance, I'm getting a contract.
Oh yeah, and he definitely did put on a great performance. He lost by split decision. So one of the judges thought that he had won that fight.
Yeah, I agree with the winner of the fight though. I think you and I were talking about, you were not as confident on the winner as I think I was. Like
I could have seen it go either way. I mean, Walker showed a lot of control time. He had him up against the fence quite a bit. Landed some good strikes, but it's like how much does each judge weigh control time versus a little bit more damage? I mean, it was extremely close.
Yeah, and I think the big thing in my opinion with the control time is he had control time, but he didn't do anything with it. Yeah. Like he was on top, but he wasn't really working a submission. He wasn't really throwing too many dominant on top ground and pound moments, anything like that. So like while he was in control, he wasn't dominant when he was in control.
Yeah, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think he only secured maybe one takedown and didn't really get too far with it either. But on the other hand, looking at Manfield, he showed amazing grit through adversity.
Yeah.
UFC debut or not, he had a tough fight in front of him.
Yeah, for
also
sure.
on 10 days notice. I think a lot of people kind of take that out of consideration. It's hard for the guy who was originally planning to fight. Sure, they might be in a little bit better fight shape because they were expecting to fight in an event, but it's hard for them to change their whole game plan on 10-day notice as well. And he looked great under adversity. Clearly, he wanted to throw hands.
Yeah.
The wrestling was there. He stayed on his feet, didn't allow the takedown to occur, really.
Had great takedown defense through the whole fight, really.
Yeah, and when he had his opportunities, he looked scary.
Yeah.
He looked scary. He looked like a heavyweight boxer out there to me.
Do you know did he call anyone out? Do you know who's...
I don't believe so, and if he did, it escapes me.
Gotcha.
But there are a couple cool call-outs, one in particular that I'm excited to talk about later. Before we get into the co-main event, I want to talk about, I personally don't know how Rob Font versus Gian Matsumoto didn't get fight of the night.
Really? That was an incredible fight.
That was an amazing fight.
They were just absolutely swinging at the end of that fight, right? Like towards the end, they just were both just like, no more defense. Screw it. I'm knocking this other guy out. I don't know which one of us won.
It was highly technical. Dude, yeah. I was launched off of my couch during the end of that fight. Once again, Gian took that on 10 days notice. So that was a 10-day notice. Yes.
That's 2 fights in this one card.
I believe it's 10-day notice. I know it's short notice.
Right.
He took it on short notice. And I think what Rob Font did was very, very intelligent. Okay. So these two fighters, very different places in their career. Okay. Right. Font at 37, likely this is his last real attempt to go for the title before, it's a little bit out of reach. Okay. So he is trying to show, like a lot of these older fighters, he can still hang with the younger guys. He can rely on his technique and his experience. Whereas, he's going against a 16-0 rising prospect. Okay. Never lost a fight in his professional career. And what Rob did is he took I keep wanting to use his last name because it sounds so cool, but don't have it down to
Matsumoto.
He took Matsumoto into uncharted territory.
Right.
He went out there and, you got a kid as good as him.
Yeah.
Right. When someone's as good as him, he's probably run through most of his fights, especially because most of his fights are not in the UFC.
Right.
Rob went out there and put hands on him hard straight off the bat, changed that mentality.
Right.
You're not in charge of this fight. I'm in charge of this fight. I'm the veteran here. You're going to have to deal with me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's probably a problem with a lot of younger guys in the UFC when it's their first couple of fights in it, especially when it's their first couple of fights in the upper ranks or even against a ranked opponent.
Yeah.
Where like 2 ranked opponents in the UFC are so much different than everyone else you fought before. Like pretty much, I would bet everyone in the UFC dominated all the way up until they got into the top ranks. And then, things started getting interesting.
Especially when we're talking about this level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, Rob Font goes out there, starts laying punches on him.
Right.
Matsumoto, man, he showed up though.
Yeah,
okay.
he did.
That kid, you have new fighters. You don't know how they're going to do it with adversity their first time.
Yeah.
That kid looked like he's in the UFC trying to become a UFC legend.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not there just to, have pretty fights where he pieces up lesser opponents. He went out there and he was ready for war.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Once again, split decision. One of the judges thought that he won that fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I had to rewatch the whole fight. I think Rob Font had a little bit more pressure and did a little bit more damage.
Yep.
Obviously, the blood on Matsumoto's face says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think really that third round Font really pulled away.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were scoring it round by round, like Font definitely won the third round.
Yeah.
And the other 2 rounds are a little bit more questionable. Right?
Yeah. I think in the post-fight interview, Font said that he felt that he had lost round 1 and then did enough in 2 and 3. I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, but the fact that wasn't the fight of the night surprised me. I mean, that launched me out of my seat. That was insane.
It was a spectacular night of fights. Like you couldn't pick. I couldn't have picked.
Too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for all that. My heart was pumping. But yes, you wanted to go ahead and talk about the co-main event?
Yeah, so the co-main event, Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez.
2.
Number 2.
I don't know if you knew that. That was a rematch.
Oh, I did not know that.
They had fought each other once before in a different organization. Same result.
Was the other organization a MMA one or was it a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu one? Because both of these guys seemed like they were fucking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experts. Like
it was a great ground game, but no, it was I think it was at the LFA.
Yeah.
It was their organization, and same result. Anthony Hernandez won by unanimous decision before.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. A lot of highly intense grappling.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Like it was really a showcase on what 2 spectacular grapplers can do in a UFC fight, right? Like it was so interesting because you don't see that very often in the UFC. Usually it's one incredible grappler against a striker or like they both probably went into that fight feeling like they were the better jiu-jitsu artist.
Yeah. And the commentary team said Brendan Allen loves to win by submission. He feels like it's a chess match and he outsmarts the other opponent by doing so.
Yeah. And I think it was just mostly Hernandez just seemed to win the scrambles, right? Like that I think is what the whole fight came down to. Like whenever they got into a scramble, Hernandez, and not every time, but like more often than not, he won the scramble.
I think almost every time. And the thing is that I think that Brandon Allen looked excellent until he didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
he definitely got gassed out.
Well, sure. I don't even know it's necessarily he got gassed out. He overextended himself.
Yeah.
He would be doing well on the feet. He would get hands on him. He would maybe get him pressed up against the cage. And then he would try and do some like crazy move, lose control.
Yep.
And then end up on bottom.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And I feel like really focus on keeping it in standing, right? I feel like he was doing a much better job with his striking, with his standing game than Hernandez was.
And he just had to hone it in, right? You
Yeah.
had to keep your composure. He's an amazing athlete. Sure, can you pull off these great highlight, moves? Yeah, but if it's going to cost you a position, and he seemed to really struggle with momentum shifts in that fight. He would be doing great. Gets on the bottom and he would flatten out.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get back to his feet quickly. He seemed a little bit demoralized, but he'd get back on top, starts raining punches again. So he was relying on that momentum quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I do think that the fight was called the right way. I think Hernandez I think he probably won all 3 rounds, maybe just the second and third. The first was a little bit more 50-50, but like I definitely think that the fight was called the right way.
Yeah, I agree. Hernandez showed great perseverance and a great balance of pure toughness and, keeping his composure at the same time.
Right.
Hernandez was surprisingly very unpleased with his performance. Apparently,
Really?
Yeah, apparently he's actually coming off being sick. And yeah, he just you could tell the high expectations he places on himself because he was not happy with that decision. He thought or not happy with the outcome of his performance. He thought that he could have done better. And
That's
so,
very interesting.
dude, he's great. He's going to be really good. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for him.
It's really interesting that he did so well in the fight, yet he was still disappointed with his effort in it or his execution of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan Allen had his moments, right? Like that fight had the potential. Had both of them been able to keep the composure like Hernandez did, I think that fight could have been a lot closer than it was. But Hernandez just kept everything crisp. He's aggressive, but he's aggressive in a calculated manner.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was the big difference.
All right, moving on to the main event of the evening.
All right, so in my opinion, probably the least exciting fight of the night.
For sure.
And a very confusing one at that.
Yeah, so this was it Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong, right? Who was the challenger in this fight? Do they have a challenger in
No belts here. So they're fighting for rankings within the division and trying to get their way to a title shot. Before we get into the mess with all that, let's talk about the actual fight itself first.
The 3 rounds of the fight.
Yeah. So Cejudo started off looking pretty promising.
He did.
Very fast twitch, which is kind of his style, being the shorter fighter, knowing he has to close the distance.
Yeah, he seemed like he was really trying to like move in quick, take some hits, and then move out. Like it just seemed like that was his game plan.
That was the game plan.
But
Song Yadong was having no part of it.
No, he just kept his distance, kept his jab up, kept kicking him in that front leg, right? Like I feel like Song was just, I feel like it wasn't really dominant, but it was decisive, right? I feel like Song just was clearly winning the fight.
Yeah, I don't think Cejudo really stood a chance. I think that had that fight gone to the 4th and 5th round, we would have seen a very gassed Cejudo slowing down, being picked apart slowly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fouls.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I want to talk about both fouls. So I know there's a lot of emphasis on the eye poke,
but the below the belt.
Yeah.
That it didn't make contact,
yes.
right? It was below the belt, but it didn't make contact with the cup, right? Like,
so that gave me a sense of the state of mind that Henry Cejudo was in in that fight. Probably already started to get tired, realizing he's not getting success. So he's going to, take that close to inadvertent shot to the cup and take his time to recover.
Yeah.
Okay. Already gave me concerns of his mindset, whether he was really ready to go through a war.
Yeah.
So two fouls in that fight. Yeah. One is the not a cup shot.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other one was a pretty nasty eye poke.
That was a pretty intense eye poke.
Like
he was going in for the hit and he went right into the poke.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it was an intentional thing.
No, not at all.
It was very much one of those incidental contact issues.
Yeah.
So I'm just very curious to see what is the technicality here, right? Like how did the rules end up like that, right? Like they ended the fight early, but it was a decision, a win?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Care if I touch on one more thing before we get to that?
For sure.
I just want to first touch upon the fact that he took the entire 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Once again, very strange. He's a strange guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and throw that out there. But very strange demeanor of taking that entire 5 minutes. To me, it seemed like Cejudo was almost like, okay, I know the rule book. I know that you have to give me up to 5 minutes when I'm fouled. If I am unable to continue at my full capacity, I'm going to take that. Okay. Yeah. So it did not seem to me like he was that hurt during those 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's hard to tell, right? With something like an eye poke, if like he can't see out of his left eye, like he was saying, it's very difficult to figure that out as someone just watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I I'm just basing it on body language, right?
Yeah.
He's not, holding his eye. He's not like trying to see a bunch. He's communicating with the ref. Like, hey, how much time do I have? Oh, okay. He goes and sits down, takes a little cat nap. And like I said, it wasn't convincing to. I'm not doubting the fact that his vision was obscured.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure it was. Not great body language.
No.
Before going back to fight, if he is truly without vision in that eye.
And the other thing is, he's in there. He knows he's already lost the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
After that eye poke,
Exactly.
right? Like, he knows he's lost the fight, and in order to win, he's got to get the knockout.
Yeah. And I mean, people don't like to consider that there's any quit in these fighters, but he said himself, he's like, I can't see out of my eye. That means I'm going to take a bunch of damage. He's in his upper 30s, he's got to consider, if I'm already losing, I'm now have a strong disadvantage with my vision. Do I want to get pieced up by this young kid?
Yeah, who is a very skilled kid.
Yeah,
right? Like,
no, exactly. It's not like he's got some scrub that he's going to go out there and have to give a half-ass effort,
right,
and possibly win.
Right, like if he were fighting someone who wasn't Song Yadong, maybe someone who is in not ranked or someone lower on the totem pole who isn't as skilled, like maybe he goes out there and thinks, okay, maybe I can still clip him. But someone who's fighting as technical and as well as Song was in that night, he wasn't going to make that comeback, especially with the eye poke.
Yeah. Yadong looked great.
Yeah. We got through so far.
Yadong looked great.
It really does. Yadong does look great.
No, striking, takedown defense, eye pokes, everything was on point, really. No, I think that no matter what happens, he wins that fight.
Yeah.
But yes, let's go on to the technical decision.
Yeah. So how does that work? Like they called it. So is it because it went 3 rounds, you can call a technical decision? What if only 1 round had finished, right? Like, so how does the technical decision work?
I had to do some research because I've never seen a technical decision before. Okay.
Yeah.
Mixed results on my research. Okay. Some of my research says that if more than half of the fight is completed, then the scorecard can be used as the decision maker.
Okay.
Other parts of my research, a decent amount, said that if the fight is stopped in the last round. So it's a little bit of a gray area as far as whether, starting that 4th round and then calling it into the fight actually met the criteria. I couldn't find anything in an official UFC rule book that states what it is.
Interesting.
I did not like the whole, okay, we're going to start the 4th round and stop it.
That was very weird. Like, did they do that to give Song the win? Is that?
Yes, that's essentially what happened. So Yadong was dominant.
Yeah. Yadong.
Okay, listen, you can't have a name like Yadong and then bring it to America and like not be recognized for it. It's a great name in America. It is a
spectacular name. We be singing about Yadong all the time.
It might be average, your average last name in China, but over here it just happens to be funny, But yeah, so yeah, essentially they started the 4th round so that I don't really know. It was just sketchy to me.
Well, I mean, it's the 3rd round. The 3rd round is technically more than half of the fight.
Yeah, so if that's the criteria, it seemed to have met it already. I don't know. In my opinion, if a fighter is unable to continue the fight, the round doesn't get started. Yeah. Okay. And I can appreciate what I believe it was Jason Herzog that was refereeing. I can appreciate what he was doing for Song Yadong because it sucks to train that long for a fight, be dominant, and then something like that.
Contest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or a DQ. It wouldn't have been a DQ because
it was not intentional, and he
didn't take a point for it either. He didn't. Yeah, the decision had already been made that no point would be taken.
Right.
Okay. Could there have been? Sure, because he had a nut shot earlier in the fight. I'm glad a point was not taken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
What is the point at which the referee usually takes a point? Is it a judgment call? Like
it is.
So like
intentional if it seems intentional.
The first time intentional, they'll do it. But like, what if someone like throws kicks and like the other guy acts like they're nut shots 3 times and they're not nut shots 3 times? What happens there?
Up to how the referee interpreted it in the moment,
Yeah.
It's tough. Refereeing is a tough job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the fight should have been probably been a no contest. If it means, not starting that 4th round, I think that was sketchy. I like what it does for Song Yadong. I'm happy for him. But I don't think that was a straightforward call.
Okay.
Least.
And then what are your thoughts on a rematch? Because here's my thought. Like, Song was dominant. He said the right thing in that scenario.
I agree. Very respectful.
He was respectful. He did the right thing. I don't think there should be a rematch.
Dana White already turned it down.
Okay.
Yeah. Dana White already said no. And I didn't read into it too much, but I agree. That's not the fight to make. No. Song Yadong was going to win that fight.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Song Yadong's call out though?
No.
I don't know if it'll happen. The internet seems to think it won't, but Song Yadong said he would like Sean O'Malley.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be very fun.
That would be really fun, especially since those guys are both very long. They're both like Sean O'Malley is super tall for the division. Right?
I think Yadong might seem long because
Cejudo's so tiny.
Because Cejudo was so tiny.
Yeah.
Oh man. I honestly think there's been more Yadong jokes than I thought they were going to be. I was trying to limit, but that one was
you and I
set it up for itself.
You and I were really both trying not to make Yadong jokes, especially the first Song Yadong that was said. Like,
but yes, I think that a stand-up fight between O'Malley and Yadong sounds great.
Yeah. Where is Yadong ranked?
That will change possibly after Tuesday, but where's my sheet?
I believe they're over there.
Let's see. Song Yadong is ranked number 8.
Okay. And where's Sean O'Malley right now? Is he number 1 or 2?
Number 1.
Number 1. Okay.
Yep.
And I think because I do think Sean O'Malley needs to have one fight if he wants to challenge for the belt again. I think he needs to win a fight to get the challenger again.
Yeah, I think that whenever you have even a long-time defending champion, which he had a couple of defenses, but when you have a dominant champion like him, if it's a close fight when he loses the belt, automatic rematch.
Yeah.
Wasn't really the case.
No,
so
he got beaten up pretty bad.
But I don't think that Song is high enough in the rankings or beneficial enough to Sean O'Malley's career for that to be the next fight for him. I would expect something more like Corey Sandhagen, something like that. People want to see Umar Nurmagomedov as Song Yadong's next fight.
Gotcha.
Apparently that was a fight that was supposed to happen last year, never happened, and so we might get to see it now. That one's a little bit more stylistic matchup, right?
Okay.
You already know last name like Nurmagomedov.
Yep.
We're gonna have strong wrestling.
Yep.
Okay, and it would be a fantastic fight to see. And Song said he is up for that as well.
So he's one of the other Dagestanis. Is that who?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just checking. I mean, you can usually tell by the name if they're one of the Dagestanis. If you can't tell by the name, you can tell by the beard and the forehead.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I have for last night's fight.
Yep.
Amazing.
Great fight night. It was spectacular night to watch the UFC.
Yeah. So should we move on to next week's event? We have Manel Kape versus Asu Almabayev. So first, I'm very excited for the main event.
Yeah.
The rest of the card, we'll have to wait and see, honestly. Yeah. I'm very rarely disappointed in what the UFC actually produces, so I'm going to try and hold my disappointment until I see what actually happens.
We could not know any of these guys, and well, I don't know any of these guys. You probably know most of them, but like that's middling fight, but like it could just end up being like yesterday, right?
Styles make matchups, Styles make the fight. So several undefeated fighters that are very new to their UFC careers going to be fighting next weekend. So I think there's like 2 people that are 9-0, another 10-0, someone's 14-1. Very fresh in the sport, obviously showing promise. So, they could be bangers. We'll see. Looking into the co-main event, however, it feels like 2 men fighting for their job to me.
Really?
Yeah. So we have Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez.
Yep.
Brundage is 2-4-1, 2 wins, 4 losses, 1 no contest in his last 7 fights. 1 win being from disqualification. You know, people say that someone has a very punchable face.
Yeah.
Okay, he's apparently got a very punchable back of the face because.
Wait, what? Back of the face? Like back here?
So he has a no contest and a DQ win, both from being elbowed in the back of the head. So man's been very unlucky with the back of his head recently. But I'll tell you what,
that's dangerous. Like,
yeah, it is dangerous.
Like, obviously, those are understandable reasons to end the fight, but like, man, getting punched in the back of the head twice.
Yeah, elbows drop.
Elbows.
Yeah, even worse. Honestly, in his DQ win, though, it looked a little bit like a I'm giving up kind of situation. He got hit to the back of the head. The referee stopped it, and he looked at the referee like, "What are you doing?" and was fine. And then once he kind of realized why it was stopped because of illegal hits to the head, then we started to see like I don't know if I can continue. It wasn't good body language for me. It looked like he was quitting, and that's kind of what I've seen in some of his fights is that he shows that he's, ready to bang, but as soon as the going gets tough, he stops.
Right.
He kind of goes flat. And so that he has to show that he has grit when things get tough if he's going to keep his job in the UFC.
Right.
Like I said, that's what this feels like. I feel like he's a bit of a sloppy fighter right now. He's got to tighten things up to show he belongs in this organization.
And then what's wrong with Julian Marquez? Like
Julian Marquez coming off a 3-fight losing streak.
Okay.
Hasn't won a fight since April of 2021. So yeah, that kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. So why is this the co-main event? Like, what have these 2 fighters done to make it the co-main event versus just another fight in the not main card?
Maybe the UFC knows something that we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't tell you that on paper. It's like that's not a very exciting fight, but we'll see. I like I said, for Brundage, he has to show a higher fight IQ going into this fight. He's got to wake up the dog in him, and he can't quit.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the other side, for Marquez, he needs to show improvement in his cardio. He's only 36 years old, I believe. But he's going out there and getting exhausted in his fights. He doesn't keep his defense very tight. I think he's been knocked out all 3 of his recent losses.
Really?
Yeah. So he's, not necessarily having a great chin on him.
Yeah.
Shows that he can be finished. And maybe he needs to prioritize getting that fight to the ground as soon as he can, because many of his wins come from submission.
Right.
Any thoughts on the main event?
Yeah. I mean, I did a decent amount of research into these 2 guys. Just
to recap it, the main event we're talking about is Manel Kape versus Almabayev.
Nice job. Those were 2 difficult names, and you killed it there.
Thank you.
It's a really interesting fight because it looks to me like Kape is just an absolute dog in the ring. Like, he comes after people. He just absolutely goes after people, but he doesn't seem to do too much jiu-jitsu. On the other hand, Almabayev, if I said that right.
I believe you did a good job.
Cool. He seems to be focused almost exclusively on jiu-jitsu. When I was watching his highlights, pretty much every one of his finishes was a jiu-jitsu finish, whether it's an arm bar. He like jumped on a guy's back and went in and grabbed an arm bar. It was insane. Like, he probably doesn't do that in the UFC, but I don't know, that it just seems like a clash of an absolute dog of a fighter versus a jiu-jitsu expert. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a very exciting fight. I think that Kape, he has mixed success, in my opinion, watching his fights. He doesn't do great against fighters that are good at managing the distance.
Okay.
When he's up in close and personal, he finds your head. He finds your body. He throws crazy shots. Yeah. So he has that ability. He has that dog in him, like you're saying. But honestly, the right now the betting odds are going towards Kape being the favorite. I personally give the edge to Almabayev.
Yeah.
He seems like the more well-rounded fighter to me. He can strike. And yes, like you said, he's got an amazing ground game. Yeah. So I think that the combination of the two, I think that Kape is going to be worried about the takedowns and surprised about the, what's it called? The striking.
The striking. Yeah. So do we want to reveal who we picked for this fight?
Yeah, I kind of gave mine away. But
yeah, you did.
That's all right. But yes, let's go ahead and take a look. Almabayev. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
You agree?
I agree 100%. I just think just watching him, his jiu-jitsu just looks so good.
Yeah.
He looks like very skilled at takedowns. He looks like he can hunt for the other guy's back, and just he seems to have those long, lanky arms that can just sneak under someone's neck or like sneak someone into bad positions. Like he just seems just too good at jiu-jitsu. And I did not see a single thing with Kape doing any jiu-jitsu really. So
yeah. No, I think that I think you're right. I think that's going to be the big threat, but I don't think that the striking is necessarily a hole in Asu's game either, though.
Right.
I think that when you have a fighter that's excellent on the ground, it makes your striking more dangerous.
Right.
That threat's there. You're thinking about, are they going to level change?
Yep.
And that makes you keep your hands a little bit lower too, waiting for that shot. As soon as Asu starts getting the shot in, whether he's just touching legs, faking shots, it's going to get Manel thinking. And that's when things get really dangerous. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, all this being said, Manel could very easily clip him. Yeah. Right. That's
no, I agree. That's how he'll win. If he lands the big shots.
Yeah. And in a 5-round fight, you got more opportunity to get those big shots as long as you don't get finished.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I think Asu has a pretty great gas tank too.
Okay.
I think he's going to be able to bring that pressure for the third, the fourth, the fifth round.
Has he been in a 5-round fight before? Because
I don't know. I'd have to look.
He's on a 4-fight win streak in the UFC. Wild. He's on a 17-fight MMA win streak right now.
Yeah, man.
Which is insane.
Yeah, I don't know how he's not the favorite. He's tearing through. He's tearing through his professional career so far. He looked really good in his last fight. I'm excited for it. This fight is, I believe, a substitute fight for what was supposed to be Manel Kape versus Dominic Cruz.
Okay. How short term notice was?
It's been a few weeks at least. Dominic Cruz suffered an injury and put him into early retirement. I don't know. You know much Dominic Cruz. Amazing career. Hats off to him. Congratulations on the retirement.
Yeah.
It just wasn't meant to be, I guess. But he has done amazing things for the sport and continues to do amazing things on the commentary side. So you'll be hearing lots of Dominic Cruz in the future still.
Yeah. So we were on the phone last night, and I think they announced that he was retiring, and we were like in the middle of hanging up, and you're like, no, you were like absolutely devastated when you heard that.
Maybe I don't remember. I had a couple brewskis with the fight. So, all right. Anything else before we wrap up for today?
I don't think I had anything. I just really want to emphasize how great that card was last night. It was such a fun fight night to watch.
That was the first time they've been in Seattle in 10 years. And wow, did they blow the roof off that place.
Oh, for sure. That 12th man.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing.
Thanks for tuning in. If you liked the video, make sure you give a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think we did well, what you think we can improve on, and, all that.
All right.
Peace.
See y'all next week. Peace.